All right. Welcome, everybody, to a book talk on books that highlight Asian American and Pacific Islander creators and characters with Janet, who is going to walk us through some great titles here. We encourage you to view this session directly from its YouTube page so you can live chat with Janet and put in any questions or comments as you hear what she has to share with us. If you don't see the chat, just go ahead and refresh your browser. Your chats mean a lot to us. Please actively participate. We'd love to hear how these book titles are resonating with you and what other titles you may have read. The gathering is an inclusive and affirming environment. We will be actively moderating the chat. So you can help by reporting accounts to YouTube if that is needed. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Janet. Janet, do you want to go ahead and take over?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you this afternoon. Happy Asian American Pacific Islander Month. I think it's great that I'm doing this book chat during May. And this is the first book chat I've done for adults. I'm so used to doing it with students. So I figure, oh, why not give it a go? So in planning for this, I looked at my bookshelf and I have a lot of books that represent Asian American Pacific Islanders, but I also went to the library and I got some books that were new to me. And as I was reading or rereading some of the books, I was thinking about the theme of unmute. And I was thinking about what are ways that we are muted. What are ways that we unmute what are ways that we mute ourselves? How do we unmute ourselves? And who helps us to unmute? So that was kind of my framing as I went through the books. And also, I know you're not with me here in my basement, but I have all the books spread out all over. So I'm going to be holding them up. It might be a little bit clunky, but I really want you to see what the books are about. So because this is AAPI Heritage Month, I also just wanted to share a point of information. You're probably very familiar with the acronym AAPI, but you may have also seen that some people use the acronym AANHPI, which is Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander. You may have also seen the acronym AANHPIDA, which stands for Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Desi American. So I just wanted to share that as some information. This is very important to me as an Asian American. Specifically, I'm Japanese American and Sansei, which means third generation Japanese American. So that being said, I will start sharing some of the books. So the first book I'm sharing with you is Amina's Voice, and it is by Henna Khan. Oh, and I forgot to say, I have a list of the books in a Google spreadsheet for you, so I'm putting that link there in the chat. And we may not get to all of these books, but at least you have the lists there. So when I'm thinking about Amina's Voice, Amina is a young Pakistani American girl who has a beautiful singing voice, but she is very shy and hesitant to try out for a solo in her school's musical. So she's muting herself in that way. She's also muting herself when she realizes that her best friend, Sujin, who's Korean American, is making new friends who in the past have been kind of the mean girls at their school. So Amina has to wrestle with these ideas of not sharing her true feelings about her singing and also with her friend. In the end, she unmutes herself, not in the best way by accidentally sharing a secret, and also by practicing for the Quran competition. In the end, she realizes that using her voice can help her community, and help her grow as a person. So that's Amina's voice. The next book I'd like to share is Jasmine Toguchi Mochi Queen by Debbie Michiko Florence. Jasmine is an 8-year-old girl who really wants to help her family New Year's celebration where they pound mochi or rice cakes. And typically the job of pounding rice cakes is a job for the boys in her family. She is very good at unmuting herself and telling her family how she wants to pound mochi and has a plan to become strong enough to do so. She gets into a little bit of trouble when she has a little bit of conflict with her cousin, but in the end, she realizes that by speaking up and staying true to herself, she achieves her dreams of pounding mochi. Okay. This book, I'll just show you some of the pages, is a graphic novel. It's called Don't Cause Trouble, and it's by Ari Chung. Ming Lee is starting middle school. And because of his name and the way he looks, he's automatically put into an ESL class, even though he only speaks English and maybe a little Chinese with his parents. He doesn't say much, and because he's very bored in the class, he ends up spending a lot of time drawing. So he's muted in that class. He doesn't speak up. But as time goes on, he makes some friends who help him realize that being in the ESL class is not where he belongs. And he learns to speak up in good ways and bad when he gets into trouble. Sorry, I'm going to just refer to my notes. As you can see, having read so many books, I just want to make sure I'm giving you all the information. So Ming Lee's parents are always telling him that it's so important to don't cause trouble. Yet he learns that by speaking up and using his voice, he can get into trouble, but also out of trouble. So unmuting for him can have good and bad consequences. It's a fun book. I wanted to choose a variety of books, not just for young children, but middle school children, high school, young adults, and even some adult books. So here's a young adult book. It's called Made in Korea. It's one of those, what do they call it? Enemies to sweethearts or enemies to lovers book. So in this book, there are two teenagers. I'm forgetting their names right now. Oh, it's Valerie and Wes. So Valerie runs a Korean beauty business out of her high school. She sells Korean beauty products from her locker, and she makes a lot of good money. Wes is a new boy at school. He's also Korean American. And without realizing it, he steps on Valerie's toes by opening his own Korean beauty business. They become rivals. Valerie is very, very angry and tries to, well, they try to put each other out of business. But as they confront different challenges through their businesses, they learn that they need to work together, and they eventually develop feelings for each other. In this story, the way that they learn to unmute themselves, is that they realize that if they don't share their feelings with each other, but with their family members as well, that it's more difficult to be successful. This is I think, a fun book because, as you may know, Korean beauty products are very popular right now. So I think a lot of teenagers would like this book. All right. Let me scroll down. The next book is a nonfiction book. It's called We Are Here, 30 Inspiring Stories About Asian American and Pacific Islanders Who Have Shaped the United States. And it's by Naomi Hirahara. So this is a collection of biographies of well-known and less well-known names, at least to me. So some of the well-known names are Keanu Reeves and Bruno Mars. And some of the less familiar names are Hina Lemoana Kwai Kong Wang Kalu, who was a teacher of Hawaiian culture and an activist, and John Newble, a Samoan-American playwright, screenwriter, and teacher. Those two names were unknown to me, and I learned something new about them. As you can see, I'll show you just a page or two. There's a portrait and a few pages of biography for each person. And when I think of this book and the theme of unmute, for me, bringing to light these names of well-known, or these names of accomplished Asian American and Pacific Islanders, was a way of unmuting the history of Asian American and Pacific Islanders, because there's so many people who have done wonderful things that we don't know about. That's that. Okay, I'm checking the time too. Here's another picture book. Oops, let me just scroll. It's called The Yellow Aodai, and it's by Han Bui and illustrated by Minnie Fan. And so in this book, the main character, Nalia, borrows her mother's áo dai, which is a traditional Vietnamese article of clothing. And she borrows it because she wants to wear it when she performs at her school's International Day. While practicing for the dance that she was going to perform, she accidentally rips it, and she has a really hard time telling her mom. But once she unmutes herself and tells her mom about the rip in the dress, she learns that the dress isn't ruined, but actually becomes more meaningful because of the special way they mend it. Nalia unmutes herself and learns that many times the mistakes we make can have a good outcome. All right, here's another young adult book. It's called Brown Boy Nowhere. You can see I put sticky notes on a lot of my readings. So this book, Brown Boy Nowhere, is about Angelo Rivera, who's a 16-year-old Filipino American, and his parents move him from San Diego, where he's big into skateboarding, to, as they say in the book, the middle of nowhere, Texas. In Texas, at his new school, he is the only brown boy and is immediately labeled that by some of the students who are not so friendly to him. He really misses his former life in San Diego, where there's diversity and a strong skateboarding culture, and also his girlfriend. He doesn't feel like he can be himself in Texas. And his primary goal is to save enough money to go back to California for a major skateboarding competition. He also wants to convince his aunt to let him live with her in San Diego and not return to Texas. But Angelo learns that he can bring who he is to Texas by teaching other people to skateboard and sharing some of his culture. And he finds that he can be himself even in a town that's a quote unquote nowhere town. All right. Thanks for all the comments. I'm having trouble multitasking in that way. All right, I'm going to share I kind of grouped these. I'm going to share this one. This is a nonfiction picture book, and this is one that's new to me. It's called We Sing from the Heart: How the Slants Took Their Fight for Free Speech to the Supreme Court. And this is more recent Asian American history and something I didn't know that much about. So the Slants is a rock band of Asian American musicians. And because they were trying to trademark their name, their Slants, it led to them bringing a case to the Supreme Court. The reason for this was when they tried to trademark their name, the Slant, it was rejected because it was deemed to be a racial slur, which I can see some people would feel that. However, they felt so strongly that they should get to determine what was a slur for them that they took it to the Supreme Court. And in 2017, they won their case as a First Amendment case. So I think it's a very interesting book because I'm sure not all Asian Americans would have the same opinion about whether the term slant is acceptable or not acceptable. But I think it's important for us to consider all perspectives. And the fact that they took their case to the Supreme Court is a very strong way of unmuting yourself and speaking up for yourself. Yeah, 2017, that was really recent. Okay. Now I'm going to share 4 books that have the same theme of Japanese internment or Japanese American incarceration. So these are all kind of related. So the first one might be familiar to you. It's written by George Takei. They Call Us Enemies. And it's a graphic novel. You can see there. And it's based on his experiences in the Japanese American internment camps. There's also a picture book, also by George Takei, as you know, of Star Trek fame. The picture book is for younger students. Related to that is this book, which you may be more familiar, or you may be familiar with too, because it got a lot of attention. So Love in the Library, written by Maggie Tokuda Hall and illustrated by Yas Imamura, is a picture book, again, of Japanese incarceration camps. And it's based on the true story of the author's grandparents who were in the Minidoka incarceration camp, fell in love and got married there. Something that's very special about this book is that when a publishing company was considering putting this into their collection of books about Asian Americans, they asked the author to remove some of the language from the author's notes at the back. My understanding is they asked her to remove the phrase virulent racism, and she refused to do so. So she took a stand because she really believed that the incarceration camps were an example of racism. And so the book was not included in the publisher's collection, and she was okay with that. So I think that shows that not only is the book about unmuting, but it's about the author unmuting herself as well. The last 2 books on the incarceration is this book called Dear Miss Breed. Sorry, it's kind of big. You could see all my notes. And it's by Joanne Oppenheim. And a related book called Write to Me. This is a picture book version by Cynthia Grady and illustrated by Amiko Hirao. And both of these books tell the story of Miss Breed, who is a public librarian in San Diego. And when the students who visited the library were sent to the camps, they wrote to her. And this the bigger book, which is written more for, I would say, middle school or maybe even high school, tells the story of the children, and even, I know it's hard to see, even reproduces some of the letters. It's very touching. It also has some photographs. This is the picture book version, and it kind of gives you an idea of some of the letters that the children wrote to her and that she wrote back to them. In the book, it also describes how Miss Breed visited some of the children in the camp and actually took them boxes of books. So I think that's a really touching story. One of the camps that they describe was at the Santa Anita camp in Arcadia, California. And that's actually where my dad was when he was put in the camps. Okay, so those are all the books about camp, and I'm looking at the time. All right, we just have a few minutes. Oh my gosh. All right. I figure it's better to have too many books than not enough, right? All right. Is time up? A few more minutes? Okay.
We have a few more minutes, yeah.
Okay, good. Sorry, all right. I'm going to share a book that's really more for adults. So the Smithsonian book that I showed that was a collection of famous Asian Americans, was written by Naomi Hirahara, but I also wanted to share this book because this is a mystery novel called Evergreen that the same author, Naomi Hirahara, wrote. And it's set in post-World War II Los Angeles and talks about how the Japanese Americans had to rebuild their lives after the war, but does it through the lens of post-World War II Los Angeles and a mystery. So in this, I'm just going to, again, go to my notes. It's set in Little Tokyo, which is a very familiar setting to me since I grew up in Los Angeles. But I think the important thing about this book in terms of unmuting is that the main character is a nurse's aide who works hard to protect her family when they are caught up in a murder investigation. So that's that. Another book specifically of interest to educators, Asian American is Not a Color, Conversations on Race, Affirmative Action, and Family by Oyan A. Poon. Dr. Poon is a professor, and I recently heard her speak, and she tells the story of how her daughter once asked her, "Mom, are we Black?" And her mom said no. And then her daughter said, "Mom, are we white?" And Dr. Poon said no. And then her daughter, who I think was like 4 or so at the time, said, "Then what are we?" And Dr. Poon answered, "Well, we're Asian American." And her daughter answered, "But Asian American isn't a color." So that was the inspiration for the book and the title. And this talks about not only family and navigating racial conversations with her daughter, but also her research around affirmative action and how different Asian groups are not all in favor of affirmative action and the reasons the different groups are in favor or aren't in favor. So it's very interesting how they express themselves and their views. Oh my goodness, the time goes so fast. Okay, Teaching Asian America in Elementary Classrooms. This is a book specifically for educators. I love this book. I wish I had had it when I was a beginning teacher because it gave so much information that I didn't know about. And it also provided some very specific teaching suggestions and resources. So this one might be something you would be interested in. All right, I see we're really closing out on time. All right, the last one I'm going to share because I think it's fun, is called Rise. Jeff Yang, Phil Yu, and Philip Wong. A Pop History of Asian America from the 90s to now. I just want to show one page because I think it is a very fun book. I'll actually show 2 pages. So it is written almost like an encyclopedia with a lot of different topics, from the most evil Asian characters to specific elements of an Asian home. They have the Asian American Yearbook for different years that lists several famous Americans. It also talks about pop culture Asian phenomenon like Crazy Rich Asians. I just think it's a fun book and opened my eyes to things I didn't know about many different aspects of Asian culture. Oh, I lost the little thing. So I think we're out of time, and I have a few more books, but I hope you will look at the list. Thank you for being with me. All this information is flowing around in my head, and I may have not shared all the specifics about the book, but I hope that you got some information and some new titles that might be of interest to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Janet, for sharing those titles. I know I wrote down at least 4 that I'm looking up. And yeah, that was full of the detail that just the right amount of teasers from those books. And I loved how you connected all of it to this unmuting theme in multiple ways. Well, thank you to everyone who joined us. Another reminder that we at this gathering has always been free to attend. And if you did feel inspired by this session and got even one title to look up, we ask that you visit our charity page and pay the joy forward. And a quick encouragement to you all to check out our next session with a conversation on muting disengagement, exploring big questions to propel learning with Chris Tovani and Sam Bennett. If you have a little bit of transition time, hope to see you there at that next session. And thanks again. Bye-bye.